So for those of you who know me, you're probably expecting me to talk about social enterprise, but I'm not going to. And for those of you who know me really well, you know I'm a little bit quirky. Oops, and I tried to make this an animated slide, but it's not going to work, so never mind. I'm proposing that we reframe the way we buy stuff, and not just office supplies. We in the not-for-profit sector have enormous purchasing power. We spend about $30 billion per year on goods and services, and not surprisingly, our biggest purchase is people, our staff, but we also spend billions of dollars on things to do with office services, building services, maintaining our equipment, and fees, professional fees, and we also spend half of our purchasing power on other, go figure, but that's the sorts of things that are too small to measure in StatsCan's numbers, but are things like rent, utilities, communications. We can use our purchasing power in a different way. I am proposing that we reframe the way we spend money. I'm proposing that we think about strategies where we can, in addition to the stable employment that we already provide to millions of people across Ontario, that we think about when we're hiring, when we're developing our human resources, that we see it through the lens of stable employment, that we see our benefits that we give to our staff through the lens of benefits for everyone who works in the not-for-profit sector. I'm proposing that we also purchase from social enterprises. I wasn't going to leave that one out. So we can hold our conferences in conference facilities that are owned by nonprofits. We can purchase our food from catering services that are run by not-for-profits. There's a whole host of goods and services that we can buy from social enterprises that we don't have to be so concerned about minute differences in cost between a social enterprise and a for-profit business. We can spend, if there's a price differential, we can absorb that price differential because it will lead to social value in our community. We can buy ethically, we can rent in green buildings, or better still, we can share space in community hubs. And we can also think about reducing our costs collectively by buying bulk. We can purchase group insurance. We can, again, we can share space. There are lots of ways that we can reframe the way we buy everything to both, reduce our costs as well as meet our mission. So that's one of the biggest reasons that we should do this, is we should put our money where our mouth is. And we can use the $30 billion that we spend every year to meet our mission. It doesn't have to be just in terms of the services we provide to our clients. It can be across everything that we do. Every dollar that we spend results in $1.50 of ripple effect, of community, of development in the economy. So if we're putting our dollars into our mission, then imagine the ripple effect that that can have. We can also save money responsibly. We don't have to, when we're looking at cutting costs, we can think about putting it into this strategy, this lens of stable employment, benefits for all, purchasing from social enterprises. So we can save money, but we can do it responsibly. And we can lead the way for others. We can set an example. And in particular, we can set an example for the government sector. If you want to learn a little bit more about how we can reframe our own purchasing, there's a session this afternoon called We Are What We Buy. I think it's perfect, and that's on at 2:45. And there's also a session earlier that I will be presenting with a colleague from Scotland on social procurement. And I wanted to share with you some ideas I had around how we can, in leading the way, we can also encourage governments to purchase socially as well. We can promote or advocate for social procurement in every aspect of government spending and government investment. We can encourage government we can advocate for government social procurement. Those of us who have products and services to sell, we should be in their faces with our products and services. Make sure they know about us. Make sure that we're listed in their directories, that we're part of their vendor process, that we're at their trade shows. Make sure that they know about the products and services that we have to sell. We can also ensure that when in this social procurement, that governments are committed to hiring from historically disadvantaged populations, and we should be advocating for that. And then last but not least, we should monitor and hold our governments to account for how they're spending our money, our taxpayer dollars. So please come and join me if you want to learn more about this, about some of the initiatives that are happening in Ontario and across Canada as well as around the world this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Could you just give us an example, however, of when that has worked, a procurement process has changed and what the impact of that has been? You know, somewhere...
Well, there have been numerous examples of government social procurement policies. I'm going to, rather than spoil this afternoon, I'm not going to take any examples
just
from that.
Just a teaser, come on.
There was the construction of a pipeline on Vancouver Island that committed to hiring from historically disadvantaged populations, in particular from Aboriginal communities and also women, low-income women. It was a very long process to get the company that had the contract to build to do that infrastructure project, to hire people, but all of the relevant pieces were put in place. All of the stakeholders were on board, and an agreement was signed, and people were hired, and the community organizations that were providing employment support were on board in terms of training people and providing on-the-job support. And I don't have the numbers, but I know that a significant number of people from those communities were hired, were in full-time employment for the period of I think it was a 3-year project, so they had full-time employment for those 3 years. More importantly, they now have training and work experience and skills that they can take to their next employer. And the beauty of that particular project, which I think we all need to learn from, is that it came in under budget and on time, despite having to hire a significant, or perhaps because it had to hire a significant portion of its workforce from these disadvantaged populations. So I think that's an example to us all that we can do better than we're doing with our money. We can use our money both internally within our own organizations, but we can also, advocate for our governments to use our taxpayer dollars in a much more mission-driven way.
A very important story to hear and share. Thank you, Anne. Okay.